Welcome to the Saphira Center of Shamanism, where we break down the ancient technologies of shamanism and the occult, bring them into balance with the deep psyche. My name is Luke, experienced practitioner and mentor of the shamanic and occult sciences. It's an honor to have you with me. Check out the links within the description of this video if you have interest in working with me, whether it's through my membership programs or through my one-on-one mentoring services. The first link in the description is for my premium membership service, the Saphira Shamanic School, designed for those who are ready to invest the time and energy into their processes using the advanced shamanic and occult sciences with a trauma-informed approach. Amazing opportunity to work closely with me, gain access to powerful occult path workings and initiatory systems, as well as potent initiatory rituals taking place multiple times each month. Check out the second link for the Patreon. Amazing opportunity to gain access to a lot of my exclusive content with new content uploaded multiple times per week. You will find occult path workings, many different healing modalities, lots of different attunements and transmissions alongside many other things at just a small monthly subscription. And the third link for my one-on-one healing and mentoring services. So today's topic is something that very few people understand and is absolutely essential, I feel, to understand for anybody who is on a deep evolutionary process, particularly those who are interested in metaphysics, particularly occult sciences and shamanic initiation. We're going to be speaking about the concept of karmic backlash, what it is, and how it can negatively impact your soul's evolution unconsciously without you even realizing it. It's very easy when we are interacting with these powerful energies, particularly if you're invoking spirits, if you're going through a type of initiation or path working, it's very easy to get caught in the fireworks. So get caught in what I call the dissociative effects of this type of work. It's very easy to get caught in the energetic sensations, get caught in the visions, and very much use what you're experiencing energetically and the tangible things that you're experiencing in your day-to-day life as a guidance for the type of work that you're doing. When this happens, it is very easy to dissociate from the needs of your soul and dissociate from the needs of your inner child. When that happens, it creates what we call karmic backlash, which is basically whereby you build karma in a particular direction that has the potential to manifest additional suffering and potentially re-traumatizing events, simply because we are using these esoteric sciences to actually neglect our truth, neglect our inner child, and in many cases actually frame this process of neglecting our truth as healing or self-development. This can become dangerous, particularly when we are interacting with intelligences and initiatory systems that are designed specifically to deconstruct illusion. Many people actually do not want to let go of the illusion and do not want to actually face the very simple feelings that their inner child is wanting to feel. When they ignore these feelings, this is when potentially re-traumatizing events can take place, simply because we are neglecting what our true will is actually wanting. And when this manifests re-traumatizing events or unnecessary suffering, this is what we call karmic backlash. So we're going to be looking at what karma actually is, free from the illusions of the New Age, free from the illusions of unnecessary religious dogma, to help you understand how karmic backlash can develop, what you can do when it occurs, and more than anything, how you can approach your evolutionary process from an optimally grounded and authentic space, and in a way that's actually sustainable for your ongoing evolution. Definitely stay tuned for this very important subject. So we start by explaining what karma is, free from the illusion of the New Age. What karma is an energetic pattern that is set in motion by a particular intention and an action that is driven by that particular intent. It is not something that is driven by morality. It's not something that is driven by you do good things and then good things happen to you, and you do bad things and bad things happen to you. A lot of the New Age beliefs around karma have, I feel, been developed from religious paradigms and illusions of duality as a whole, when in reality, what karma is an energetic pattern that is outside of duality altogether, which means that there is not good karma or bad karma, but there is karma that is potentially at your evolutionary benefit and at your evolutionary detriment. What this is defined by is how aligned your intention and your action is to your true will, or how aligned that intention is to your inner child. For example, if I have a particular intention, which is then carried out by certain actions that are aligned to what my inner child wants, that are aligned to my needs, that are aligned to my true will, what my soul has come here to do and evolve, that is going to develop and set in motion a karmic pattern that is in harmony with the soul, which means that it's going to orchestrate experiences, situations that won't necessarily be easy, but are going to have more of an evolutionary benefit. Whereas if you continuously reject your inner child, which is what the majority of the world do, neglect the needs of the inner child, neglect innocence, and operate from obligation the majority of the time, or dissociation out of fear of being hurt by the external world, then this is ignoring those needs, which is then going to build a particular energetic pattern on the karmic level that is at your evolutionary detriment. What this will then manifest is potentially re-traumatizing events time and time again until something different is carried out using the person's free will. It's always driven by your free will. You always have the opportunity to make the decision between what is right and what is easy. The issue is that we are programmed to follow a path that is easy. We're programmed to follow the path of least resistance, as opposed to what is right. What is easy is often patterns that feel safe, patterns that actually represent a path that is re-traumatizing, but a path that we would actually prefer because stepping beyond that is far too dangerous in the false self's eyes. You know, at the end of the day, these programs are set in motion to protect you from trauma that has taken place in your early years. But in doing so, often reject the needs of the inner child and then build a karmic pattern that is at the soul's evolutionary detriment. And this is what karmic backlash is. It's extremely common and it's extremely normalized within the world around you. So what are some examples in the day-to-day of how karmic backlash can actually play out? The most common one that I see is the people pleaser energy. The people pleaser energy, or should I say the people pleaser archetype, has been developed through an illusion of martyrhood, which creates the illusion that they need to give their essence away and basically neglect their needs to basically fit somebody else's needs or the needs of multiple other people or dynamics in order to feel enough. This means that the people pleaser energy has a narcissistic charge behind it, even though it is often labeled as an empathic trait. The people pleaser energy has a narcissistic charge behind it because the person is often doing it in order to feel enough because they don't feel enough without it, which means that they are building karmic backlash in that particular direction. They are building an energetic pattern that is likely going to manifest the same things time and time again until they do things differently, until they take the path that is actually the right path instead of the easy path. The easy path would be to just continue to give the essence away, continue to neglect the needs in order to fit the needs of other people. Karmic backlash that is developed from those actions will often continue to manifest those situations and people into the person's life that are demanding more than what the person can sustainably give. Another example that I see this playing out is in the classic, I am always attracting narcissistic partners and I don't know why. This often manifests as a result of the person not serving themselves enough within their day-to-day lives. In other words, basically they're neglecting their narcissistic energy that is within them. They're neglecting their need to serve themselves. So what that's then manifesting in the form of is, say, narcissistic relationships, whereby they have a lot demanded of them and more demanded of them than what they are able to sustainably give, similar to the people pleaser energy. So what is going to be at the soul's evolutionary benefit versus the soul's evolutionary detriment? If you walk the easy path, and that is to blame the partner, get rid of the partner on the physical level, instead of actually honoring your own narcissistic energy, honoring your own service to self feminine energy and embodying it, then that is basically going to develop karmic backlash within that particular direction because you are neglecting the inner narcissist. You are neglecting the aspects of your inner child that want you to serve yourself and are projecting that onto the partner. And then that is likely going to manifest a similar partner until something different takes place, until stronger boundaries are set in motion, until basically you start honoring the aspects of yourself that want you to serve yourself. So karmic backlash manifests the same trials time and time again. It manifests the same re-traumatizing dynamics time and time again, the same relationship dynamics, the same sort of ways that people respond to you, people responding to the same way to you as they did when you were a child, all of those types of things. And it's the biggest thing that happens in the world around us. It is the most normalized thing. It also comes from an illusion that evolution comes from suffering. If you are continuously attracting the same things into your dynamic that are mirrors of the trauma that you experience as a child, or you're attracting the same types of partners, then what you're doing is that you are continuously building karmic backlash within that particular direction. You are building a karmic pattern that is then manifesting the same things time and time again, often through needing to stick to an older pattern as opposed to forge your own path. We carry karma that is not ours. Okay, we can develop and actually embody karma that is not ours by walking the same path that other people walk instead of actually forging our own path. Forging our own path is never the easy thing to do because it's a path that hasn't been walked by anybody else, which means that you are not going to be able to tangibly see the path ahead of you. Whereas what most people do, because this is how they've been programmed, is that they need to follow the path of least resistance. They need to follow the path that doesn't seem difficult in any way whatsoever. Yes, you can experience synchronicities by doing things that are in alignment with your soul. Yes, it can be easy from time to time, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy all the time. In fact, you start to walk a path that you are forging for yourself. You start to walk a path that is aligned to what your inner child actually wants. It is not unusual for more initiatory trials to come in to actually flesh out the path that you are walking. But the difference between these initiatory trials and re-traumatizing initiatory trials is that they are different. They are different initiatory trials that are being magnetized towards you through building karma that is at your evolutionary benefit by basically forging your own path. For example, you can carry the karmic burden of your ancestors by walking the same path that everybody else has walked in your lineage, by carrying out the same trauma time and time again because it's the easy thing to do. The easy thing to do is to carry out the trauma because you can see the path directly ahead of you, which means that Karmic backlash will be developed by you dissociating yourself from what your soul actually needs and following a path that on the surface may seem right and easy, but in reality, it could be setting the same patterns in motion and actually manifest additional unnecessary suffering into your day-to-day life. This is extremely common when people get into occultism or shamanic initiation. A lot of the time, people get into these initiatory systems or they start working with spirits without actually knowing what the initiatory function of the energy actually is. Basically, if you start interacting with any spirit, whether it's a positively polarized spirit, an angel, or a negatively polarized spirit, a daemon, you are going to be tapping into an energy that is there specifically to set you on the path of your soul, that is there specifically to set you on the path of your soul that is in harmony with the given traits of that particular current of energy. But what many people do is that they set motion on this initiatory process and then continue to dissociate themselves from the child. Common thing that I see in occultism is people doing lots of invocations, people doing lots of path workings, and doing all of these initiatory systems, and getting caught in what I call the fireworks, which is getting caught in the outer layer, like all of this surface level stuff such as needing to curse people, surface level stuff in terms of needing to feel the energies or needing to get loads of money or needing to, be experiencing a certain level of energy in a particular direction. But what they're doing unconsciously in many cases is dissociating themselves from the needs of the inner child. For example, how I see this playing out with newer practitioners within the occult is, say they invoke a spirit, which basically you're invoking a spirit, with your free will, you are letting the spirit into your energy field and nervous system, which means that they're always going to be lingering around you. This means that, okay, you've now opened yourself up through your free will to gain the alchemy of that given spirit. What some people do is that they might get scared of the spirit and then try and get rid of the spirit. They might try and banish the spirit, or they say that the spirit has come in uninvited, or that the spirit is always around them when they don't want it to be around them, when in reality they have invited it in with their free will. The act of inviting that spirit in may be in harmony with the needs of the inner child and what the soul actually wants to grow. But when they say, oh God, no, I need to get rid of the energy, I need to banish the energy, then that is likely going to develop karmic backlash within a negative direction, purely because they are basically bringing an energy in, saying, I want to be exposed to your alchemy and your lessons, and then they are basically saying, actually, no, bugger off, because it's reaching a point that I'm not comfortable with. Okay, and this comes back to the whole idea of walking the path of least resistance and making the decision between what is right and what is easy. If you constantly walk the easy path, which is going to be a path that is familiar, a path that you can see directly ahead of you, then you will build karmic backlash in a particular direction that is designed specifically for you to walk a path that is forged only by you. So it can be built in many, many different ways, but it is not black and white. Okay, what is a karmic backlash to one person may not be for another person. For example, somebody could be doing a good deed that is in alignment with what their soul actually wants to experience and what their inner child wants. That way, they will be developing what you could call karma that is at their evolutionary benefit, while somebody else who is doing the same good deed could be doing so from a place that is neglecting their inner child. So it's not necessarily black and white. Okay, so how do you know if you are experiencing karmic backlash? You're experiencing karmic backlash likely if you are getting the sensation that you are cycling. Okay, if you're getting the sensation that you are kind of stuck in the same place, or you're encountering the exact same things time and time again. So you're experiencing the same types of partners, you're experiencing the exact same sort of manifestations, just in a slightly different form. All of this is a sign of karmic backlash. All of this is a sign that you are setting in motion a particular pattern that is going to bring you potentially re-traumatizing events. Whereas if you are on a path and you're setting karma in motion that is at your evolutionary benefit, then what that is going to bring in is new initiatory trials that are going to set you in a different motion. They may be a mirror of past trauma, but the point is that the initiatory trial is going to be of a different nature. Whereas you are experiencing karmic backlash if you are in a perpetual cycle of the same types of people coming into your reality and you're not doing anything about it, basically. Okay. This is why karmic backlash is not necessarily a bad thing on the surface, because at the end of the day, the energy is being set in motion to help you to grow out of that pattern. But it becomes dangerous when somebody does not want to grow beyond that pattern, particularly when they are getting into, say, occult initiation or shamanic initiation or working with spirits or working with healing modalities that on the surface is healing, but in reality, they're just using these spirits to continue to walk the same path and to get validation for the false self. When in reality, how this should be working is that you tap into these particular initiations and technologies or spirits, and they are deconstructing illusions and helping you to walk a new path, helping you to walk a path that is forged only by you. And as I said, this is going to be filled with different initiatory trials that is brought by the karma that you're building, because it's not going to be a tangible path yet, because you're walking a path that has only been forged by you. Whereas if you're carrying out the illusion of martyrhood, you're continuously attracting the same types of partners, then you are setting in motion the same things to happen time and time again. And this can become a serious loop when somebody is invoking, say, dark matter spirits that are resonating with their deep unconscious, and then, say, trying to get rid of the spirit or trying to control the spirit or trying to control what they're experiencing with that given spirit, because that is going to massively enhance the karmic backlash and bring potentially re-traumatizing situations in, because you're continuously building momentum in a direction which is accommodating the act of neglecting your inner child. Okay, this is why people go into the cliff off and they don't integrate, and that basically means that they have a completely horrible, hellish time continuously within the cliffothic realms and just manifest the same things time and time and time again, because they have consciously opened the door to deconstruct the illusion, but they are still wanting to hold on to the idea of knowing, and they're still wanting to hold on to the idea of having to forge a path or walk a path that is easy. Okay, following your soul's evolutionary path is not an easy thing to do. It is challenging. But actually going against that grain is going against the karmic influence of your ancestors. Okay, if you're doing the same things that your ancestors did, you're responding in the same ways that your ancestors did, then you are building the same karmic backlash that they did and are going to be perpetuating in that same cycle, particularly if you get into a type of initiation which is designed specifically to evoke past trauma and help you to process it and actually start to experience a different reality. If you are not willing to embrace that different reality, then you are going to likely experience more unhelpful disintegration, and keep re-traumatizing your inner child the further and further you go throughout your initiatory process. And you see it a lot with, say, the cliffothic realms. People get caught up in going and facing all of these demonic entities and bringing all of these energies into them, when, often people use this to fuel more separation. Yeah, they actually use the demonic spirits to actually start to perceive themselves more as separate, instead of actually integrating the aspects of yourself that these demonic entities are actually trying to mirror back to you. At the end of the day, they are just personifications of things that have, from a psychological perspective, they are personifications of what has not been processed. So what many people do is that they work with them and then they continuously separate them, or they separate themselves from the spirit, or they separate themselves from the world around them. And that is not a sign of integration. Integration happens when you are actually becoming more vulnerable. Your heart is opening, you're becoming more vulnerable with yourself, and you're becoming more vulnerable with the world around you. And this is a more challenging path on the surface, because the more open your heart becomes, the more evolution that you are going to go down, and the more situations are going to be pulled in to actually break not the heart, but break the shell around the heart, to open the heart greatly. Such as, for example, you could have learned from your early years, if you had your privacy continuously invaded, or you were abused as a child, or you've had traumatic past relationships, that has likely made you distant from your vulnerability by default. So when you start actually going against that grain and start actually walking your own path, your heart will start to open. Okay, and that is not going to feel comfortable, because what is then going to come to the surface is fear of something like that happening again. Whereas the easy thing to do in that situation is to shut off and be alone, because then you shut off and be alone. That is what is comfortable. That is a reality that is comfortable, but it may not be at your evolutionary benefit. So then we can go through our lives perpetuating in a cycle that we actually like, perpetuating in a cycle that we like, that is actually causing us to dissociate ourselves from people more and more. Okay, this is another core example that I see this playing out time and time again. People get re-traumatized by relationships, traumatized in their early years, and then create this lone wolf energy. Okay, and as much as that is valid and needed for some people to be able to survive the trauma that they went through, it's not sustainable for the evolution of the soul. It's not sustainable for what the soul actually needs to be able to grow and evolve. So in that case, the easy thing to do, and what will likely build the most karmic backlash, is to continuously shut off from other people and be alone, to continuously shut off from vulnerability, to create the paradigm that you do not need people altogether. Whereas often the soul may actually bring situations or a mirror into your reality that is there specifically to actually move in the other direction, to start becoming more vulnerable with yourself, to start becoming more open to vulnerable connections. And when you're actually becoming more open to vulnerable connections, and you're becoming more vulnerable with yourself, and you're understanding your own value, then that is what is going to break the cycle. That's what's going to break the pattern, because you're then going to magnetize people who are going to mirror that self-value. And if they value themselves, they are then going to value you as well. So it can really play out in lots of different ways. But what I really want to set home with this particular video is to really be aware of how this backlash is potentially playing out in your life, in how you are potentially perpetuating in cycles that are not helpful for you. And if you are into occult initiation or into shamanic initiation, are you at all using these mechanisms and techniques to actually make yourself more distant from your truth and authenticity? I see this playing out a lot with, say, therapists or people who are quite experienced in different types of paths. Often it can create this illusion of righteousness that separates one from being able to grow further beyond the paradigm that they've created, and that can cause the same karma to be manifesting time and time again, and the same situations to manifest time and time again, and then for it to actually be normalized because somebody has trained in set therapeutic techniques that work for certain types of people. So really understand your own connection to your child, build a regular routine of communicating directly with your inner child, not even by via another spirit, but developing a regular routine of actually, tapping into what your child's needs actually are, and really being honest with yourself in terms of how you may be avoiding those needs and dissociating yourself from them in your day-to-day life, or worse, using the initiatory systems and using healing modalities to actually become more distant from what your soul is actually wanting to evolve as a whole. So the differences are very easy. If you're walking a path that is easy, that is continuously, you see it in front of you, you see it ahead of you, that's fine, that's fine. Yeah, I can see everything ahead of me, but you're experiencing the same things time and time again, you are likely perpetuating in karmic backlash. Whereas if you are, actually using the fear as a guidance system and going into a path that is less known and that is less tangible, but you are experiencing different initiatory trials that are actually set in motion to help you become more vulnerable with yourself and are not receiving the same initiatory trial time and time again in your day-to-day life, then this is at your karmic benefit. Okay, and many people think that they are evolving and think that they are utilizing these types of esoteric initiation to their full capacity, when in reality they are using them as mechanisms to further dissociate from their truth and authenticity. Absolutely essential to understand so that we don't go into this work and just perpetuate in the same things time and time again. We actually have to grow, and growing is not always a pleasant experience. Growing is not always comfortable, but is often what is needed for the evolution of the soul. Vulnerability and openness is not an easy thing, particularly if you have experienced, re-traumatizing relationships, or, like most of us have, or like all of us have experienced some form of childhood trauma. The protector parts and the false self are established specifically to dissociate us from those needs, and then we create this illusion of being okay, this illusion of functioning effectively within the world around us, this illusion of realistically false light, in order to further dissociate ourselves from what our inner child is actually here to feel and embody. That's an absolutely essential subject to understand in order to get the most out of any deep evolutionary process. Consciously facing your karma and making the decision between what is right and what is easy. What is easy will likely result in more karmic backlash, and what is right may well be what less people around you actually honor and want. But you have to do what's right for you. Doing what's right for you, what's right for your inner child, may not be aligned to what other people want you to do, but it will be aligned to your soul and will break some very deep-rooted karmic patterns and backlash that has likely been playing out for centuries in your generational lineage. So I think that is everything that I needed to speak about in today's video. Big subject, important subject, but for now, thank you guys. Definitely check out the links within the description of this video if you have interest in working with me. Hit like and subscribe if this information was helpful to you, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.